guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, H.O.A. threatened to sue a pastor over his wheelchair ramp while he was in the hospital recovering from a stroke. My husband has always been a wonderful and sweet man. He is a pastor that hundreds of people seek advice and counsel from. He has the biggest heart I've ever seen in any man, and nothing made my blood boil more than when our neighborhood's homeowners association decided they would put us in a bind. We have lived in this H.O.A. governed neighborhood for about 4 years now, and I'll say, I don't love it. I mean, the house is beautiful and it's truly my dream home, but this dang H.O.A. is the worst. These people will send letters and fines for just about anything. One time my husband had out graduation signs for our daughter. They were the words, "Congrats Kylie," and a few balloons. Well, the party went on for a few hours longer than expected. Daryl, my husband that is, had some friends in from out of town to see Kylie's graduation. So we had some beers and played some cards, and we forgot to remove the decorations from the yard. We slept in for once in our lives and didn't get up until around 9 a.m. or so, and ended up getting around to removing the signs around lunchtime. Well, you bet your butt we had a letter and a fine in our mail the next day from the H.O.A. saying that we broke rules leaving them up overnight. It's just absolutely silly if you ask me. That certainly wasn't the only petty offense that they would fine people over. My neighbor had an RV that she rented and kept it in the driveway for 24 hours while they were preparing for their trip. They fined her $300 for having an RV and a commercial vehicle, because there were signs on it for the rental company on the back of it. So, one day, something bad happened. My husband suffered a massive stroke and was rushed to the hospital. He had to stay there for several weeks before he could even come home. It was the hardest time of my life, and I had no idea there would be even harder times when the damn H.O.A. decides to make my life more complicated. They were ready to fine us just for the grass being over a specific height 1 week. My husband had been in the hospital, so I was not home much and didn't realize that the grass was getting tall. That's usually Daryl's job, my husband that is. It slipped my mind with him having a stroke and all. Thankfully, Kylie's boyfriend came over and mowed the grass and took care of the other housework. He's a nice boy. This whole time that my husband is in the hospital, I'm in communication with nurses and doctors telling me that I have to accommodate the house for his wheelchair. They said that if I didn't have ramps and other things set up for him to get inside and maneuver around, that he would have to stay at a nursing facility. I wasn't having that. As nice as these people are, I want my husband home with me. I was a nurse for 20 years until I was in a car accident that injured my back. Since then I have worked from home for a company that does nursing relief. I had to hire a company to come out to the house and quote me for building a ramp up to the front of the house as well as a ramp in the garage. The quotes were expensive, and the garage ramp was a no-go because I wouldn't be able to fit both cars inside, which we will be fined if they are left in the driveway overnight. So, the front door was the only option. There are several steps leading up to the front of our house, and it was going to be a pain, but it would work, for a lot of money. We were in a huge pinch at this point. Not only am I worried about the cost of this ramp, but we also had our furnace go out. There was a beautiful light at the end of these troubles, and it was our church. My husband's church where he is a pastor. The people got together for a fundraiser and pulled enough money to pay for the ramp and replace the furnace. I was in tears. I couldn't believe how generous these wonderful people could be. Meanwhile, we have some sneak from the H.O.A. watching us. I didn't realize it at the time, but I know it now. We did have a lot of traffic coming and going with nurses' aides to help us get set up, plus the family and friends that were stopping by with food and kind words. They began building the ramp and everything seemed to be looking up. But then one night, my husband had another stroke. It was much milder, but we had to return to the hospital, nonetheless. My heart is broken to see him in such a terrible state again, but he always said that he would push forward no matter what. And he did. The ramp goes up, Daryl is recovering slowly again, and the doctors say we can go home. This time it was almost a month in the hospital before we could leave. Everything went pretty well for a little while. About 2 months passed and suddenly we got a strange letter in the mail. It's formal and actually from an attorney. I didn't understand. Could this be a mistake? Unfortunately, it wasn't a mistake. The HOA was suing us for our wheelchair ramp. Something about how we had to have prior approval and that it needed to be removed as soon as possible. I was fuming. And I'll tell y'all, I'm a nice woman and I rarely use harsh words or take the Lord's name in vain, but gosh, I was mad. I immediately called my brother-in-law, who is a lawyer. A darn good one too. Andy was quick to tell me that we should be in good shape. He wanted to represent us, but that was a matter of conflict, so he directed us to his partner, who he could somewhat work through. His partner's name was Andre, and he was a very sweet, young man who made quick work of the situation. The first thing to look into was the Americas for Disabilities Act, at least on the legal end, and also rally together some neighbors and church friends. Our neighbors were excellent, and we had already been communicating with them for help with trash and the grass, trying to keep the HOA off our backs while we were tied up in the hospital. Daryl had always put together a huge Christmas celebration at the hall downtown. Everyone was invited and there was Santa and Mrs. Claus, and don't forget about the reindeer. Not to mention the crazy float that he always puts together for the town's Persimmon Festival parade. The kids always follow it, yelling for them to throw them more candy. Let's just say he was a popular guy. We received tons of support from the rest of the neighborhood, and one of our church attendants worked for the local newspaper. Our story quickly gained notice once they were talking about it in town, and the HOA was being shamed in no time. Andre wrote up a letter, informing them of our rights, telling them that we would be taking them to court for their discrimination against a disabled individual. My husband was worried about everything with the HOA, but I kept telling him not to. With all of the help I had received from family and friends, I think that the HOA would back off soon enough. It was only a few days later that I got a phone call from one of the board members. He was apologizing profusely and said that he didn't realize what was going on. He goes on to say that there was a petition going around to have the lead board member removed, which was news to me. Apparently, some of the neighbors wanted a change after our issues. This rattled individual continued to apologize and said that he didn't want to be sued and that we could keep the ramp. He even said that he never wanted this to happen to begin with. Something about it was another lady that everyone once voted off anyway. Works out for me either way, so I didn't care much. As long as they left me and my husband in peace. Turned out that the neighborhood went ahead with removing the lead board member and put someone with more morals in the chair. Daryl has continued to recover, and the ramp has served us very well during his progress. I will forever be thankful for all those that helped us. From family and friends to even some strangers, they are really what made this better in the end. The next story is titled, "Ex-Friend Thinks I'm Going to Be Their Landlord." TLDR. A former friend has left a bunch of her stuff in my flat and plans to move in. She has made zero attempt to contact me, but somehow thinks this will work out in her favor. I am in the UK. I bought my first flat when I was in my 20s. I rented out a room to a guy from Poland. Awesome flatmate, super good at DIY and maintenance. I was seeing someone for a while, let's call her Ghost. Ghost lived with two other girls, one of whom is the titular ex-friend, let's call her Karen. Ghost and I broke up, from the imaginative name you can guess what happened. And that whole friend group ditched me. My career went pretty well, and I bought a house in the suburbs. I decided to let flatmate stay on in the flat on the same rent, with the proviso that he not sublet, but his girlfriend moves in, which is fine. I get the mortgage covered and a tenant who is better at maintaining the place than I am. He gets a 2-bed flat for half price. A few years on, and a certain idiot referendum passes, and flatmate and his girlfriend are moving home to Poland. His girlfriend has already gone back, but when I'm over sorting some stuff with flatmate, I see a huge pile of moving boxes etc. in the spare room. Oh, is that girlfriend stuff? Are you going to be able to fit all that in the car? No, that's Karen's stuff. She asked if she could leave it here while we were still here. As it turns out, Karen was still friends with girlfriend. She found out they were leaving, and that their rent was a pretty good deal. She told girlfriend that she had squared it all with me, and that she was going to take it all over. I will confess to a few minutes panic and confusion. I have not spoken to this person in years. She thinks that she is going to move into my flat, and doesn't even ask. How the hell does she even intend to pay rent, given she has made zero attempts to contact me? And why would I not go for market rate? I'm honestly baffled, and somewhat morbidly fascinated to find out how she thinks this is going to work. I don't really want to get into some kind of ridiculous squatters' rights squabble with them, so I contacted my solicitor, think a non-trial lawyer. She recommends I get the locks changed, and install a security camera, and to send the inevitable roof hitting her way when Karen turns up and tries to get in. I actually think she's quite excited by the drama. A bit more interesting than property conveyancing. I explain all this to flatmate. He agrees to move out 2 weeks early, and even helps me fit the doorbell camera. He really was the best. So that's where we are. I pretty much have the Ring app open constantly on my phone. I have pretty clear instructions not to say anything other than give my solicitor's information and record all correspondence when it happens. I'm presuming she will hear from girlfriend though. I'll post an update if anything interesting comes of it. Update. Today at lunchtime. Karen turned up and tried to get in the flat, and she was not alone. Ghost was with her, and they had a key. I feel stupid for not remembering that Ghost probably had one from when we were together, or they got a copy from girlfriend. Didn't think she'd keep it after she ditched me, but probably should have changed locks back then. Oops. Sorry tenants, my ex had a key to your flat the whole time. Camera didn't get the preamble, but they came up to the door and tried a key. It's not working. Some fumbling. He's ducking changed the lock. Some more descriptive language, presumably about me and my parentage that I can't wait to have a solicitor read back to them. They continue to take turns trying the key. I connect at this point but don't say anything. They try the doorbell, but it doesn't make any noise because I'm connected. I think it's lit up, but I guess they don't realize that means I'm watching. I thought Ring cameras had a siren to give them a fright but couldn't find it. They bang on the door and window a bit before walking off. I stayed listening through the camera but didn't hear anything. Still eerily quiet on phone. Video sent to solicitor anyway. I've had 2 calls from unknown numbers. Not going to answer, will wait for someone to text me and send them the solicitor's contact info. More to come in guess. In hindsight I should probably have waited to see how this played out before posting. Solicitor would probably murder me if she knew I was doing this. Update 2. After a whole bunch of phone calls from random numbers I finally got one from Ghost's father. He was always a gentleman who I got on with, so I sent him a polite message saying if this was about the flat, please direct this to my solicitor and gave him the details. He said okay, and she said he contacted her and is going in to meet her on Friday. So, I guess I could update the title to entitled X wants me to be her landlord. I did some snooping on social media. I deleted my Facebook years ago. It seems that Ghost and Karen's other housemate is getting married soon. They were all living rent-free in the bride's nan's old house, so I'm guessing impending nuptials are the reason Ghost and Karen are looking for somewhere new and cheap to live. Not really my problem though. Update 3. Probably the final one. Has taken a turn from the entitled to just plain dumb. With my apologies, there is not much drama, and it is all second-hand. Karen, Ghost and Ghost Dad met with solicitor today, where they unveiled their secret weapon. They had a copy of my lease with flatmate. I was right, in that their rent-free ride was over, and they had no money saved. Ghost had been used to me as a cash machine for years, I guess, so thought I would just roll over? Lol no, as the kids might say. So, these brainiacs' plan was that they would take over the existing lease agreement with flatmate and girlfriend without my involvement. They had a key. They had my payment details from the tenancy agreement. Girlfriend just cost flatmate and her a wedding gift. Luckily the account's sole purpose was for rent, so I can change that number easily. They thought they could just write their names on the form as well and it would be legally binding. Never mind the fact that there is no subletting, the agreement was with someone else, and the agreement was terminated by flatmate. Solicitor says they only tried to argue their point for a minute before giving up. Meeting at her office gave her real home field psychological advantage, I think. That and, you know, every freaking law in the land. She was laughing on the phone about it. Honestly, these people are nearly 40. How they have no idea how lease works is beyond me. Although I don't think they believed it, I think it's just because they got caught and are trying to spin. Long stupid story short, Ghost's dad has agreed to pay a moving company to collect the boxes and bring them to his house. I need to be there for that, but I will slam the door at the first sign of anyone other than a mover. I'm out about 350 quid in solicitor's fees. I can accept that, like I said, no wedding preset for flatmate now. I mean I'd preferred not to have that happen, but who knows what would have happened if they got in or got their day in court. There is a non-zero chance I could have been screwed by a justice based on some sob story. Even in the likely case I'd win, the only people who make money on these things are the lawyers. Punitive damages aren't really a thing here. The courts would just send everyone on their ways. At least I'll always have a video of my ex failing to pull a fast one on me, and the record of her being called to my solicitor's office like they've been called to the office by the head teacher. Quick note on why I didn't just chuck her things out the door. Flats here tend to open to outside, not a corridor, so it would be the same as chucking it out in the rain, and there is a legal duty of care. It's called being an involuntary bailee. It sucks, but it's a pretty common landlord problem. And Karen is a Karen. At least twice I've seen her complain in a restaurant to get her meal comped. Rules are a weapon to use against others. She would absolutely have made trouble for me. That's hopefully it. Thanks for sticking with me. Apologies if it didn't live up to the expectations of drama. Hopefully at the very least it will serve as a cautionary tale about changing locks if you get dumped. Thanks for listening.